My road to Studio Series 86 Ratchet was an incredibly boring roller coaster, but I'm going to go over it anyway because that's what I do. So, when this guy was first announced, or actually not even when he was first announced, when Studio Series 86 Ironhide was announced, I had like a small Ratchet collection going, just like a few Ratchets. And for anyone who knows how I do things these days, I typically try and collect multiple versions of the same character. Why I have a Nemesis Prime shelf that's close to like 30 Nemesis Primes now, or I guess black repaints of Optimus Prime. Anyway, I wanted this to be a short story. I'm sorry. Point is, when I had like a small Ratchet collection when they announced Studio Series 86 Ironhide, and I was like, that looks cool, but I'm gonna wait for the inevitable Ratchet repaint. Then they finally did the Ratchet announcement, but by then I was kind of like, I think I'm gonna sell off a bunch of my Ratchets, and I basically didn't have any Ratchets for a while, and so once this guy actually came out, I didn't have a Ratchet collection anymore, so I was kind of like, what's the point in even getting him? But I kept seeing him in our local Target, and he kept mocking me on the shelf every time I went in for like a month, more than a month really. And so eventually I did relent, and now I have Studio Series 86 Ratchet, and this is the only Ratchet I currently have. I am kind of thinking I will reacquire the Bumblebee movie Ratchet because that is a fantastic figure, especially with Reaper labels. But point is, right now this is my only Ratchet, and he's actually really neat. I never had Ironhide, but what's interesting is a lot of the stuff that put me off of Ironhide doesn't seem to bother me with Ratchet here. Like, he's got a lot of panel lines, and there is definitely some color difference between the painted bits, like these sections here, and this section here, and these little triangle bits up in here. But it's not as pronounced, I don't think, as it is on Ironhide. Plus, it just seems to kind of come together a little bit better, hold together a little bit better. And I feel like, I don't know, I've always liked Ratchet as opposed to Ironhide in terms of character design. Even though they're basically the same vehicle and same robot, I've always preferred the white with red rather than the red with gray and a little bit of yellow. That's just like my personal thing. I will say the ambulance mode here is a little sparse. I mean, it's not like there's no paint on it. There's paint on basically wherever you see the windows, there's paint. There's like white paint along here, white paint along here, going all the way up along here. Like, you can really see the difference in this light here. But like, yeah, there's that. This section is painted. Of course, the front is painted. You've got the rims on all the wheels are painted, and then also the exhaust pipes / guns are painted. And so yeah, like there is paint on this guy, but it is still a little bit on the sparse side just because it's primarily just white with a little bit of translucent blue and some silver. I feel like maybe a little bit, like even just a Red Cross, Autobot Red Cross symbol somewhere along the side here would be nice. Maybe a little bit on the back here, I don't know. I'm contemplating getting the Reaper label set. Some of it I think makes him look a little too busy, but we'll see. But you know, it's Ratchet. He's a white van because ambulance with the light bar on top, which comes off a little too easily for my liking. Not in this clearly context, but it's when I've transformed this guy a few times, I have accidentally popped off the light bars because they really don't hold on very securely, and I could easily fix that, and I might in the future. But yeah, there is that. I think also the little bits on top of Ironhide's van mode bug me, but they don't bug me with Ratchet because light bar. So yeah, he's a van. That's pretty much it. Here, the translucent windows do bug me. They don't bug me as much as they do on some other figures because there's at least a little bit of opaqueness to them. So like, you can still see the back of his robot mode head in there. You can still see the hinges and stuff in here, as well as the reversed R1 and L1 on the sides there, which it's like molded into the plastic, which I think is just kind of eh. And also you can see through the okay. It's hard to see in this lighting, but you can actually see all the way through the windows on the back, and you can kind of see some crumbled up robot junk in there. Again, it's not as bad as other figures where this kind of stuff really bugs me, where it's like just translucent, completely clear plastic. Like, ugh, I hate that. But yeah, he's pretty bare bones for what he is. But I think he does get the job done, and as you can see, he does hold together pretty well. And actually a little too well in one case, but we will get to that. Now, let's zoom out for some size comparisons, and he's a Voyager class figure, but he's kind of on the slightly smaller side. I think in this case his Voyager-ness comes more from complexity than size. I mean, he is bigger than a deluxe, obviously. I say without having a deluxe there, but obviously he is bigger than a deluxe. Like, he is taller, stretches for farther, is about the same width. So, like, yeah, there's definitely more figure here than here, but when he goes into robot mode, like, I feel like, I'm pretty sure Dinobot's a lot taller, so we will see that in a minute, or a few minutes, if I'm being honest. And finally, get you out of here first. And finally, our most important of size comparisons, as always. Here we have Studio Series 86 Ratchet with the duck tank. You may have noticed in the more recent videos I had a watch on this arm, and it's not there anymore. That's because I found out the hard way that my wrist does not seem to like silicone that much over a prolonged period of time, so no more watch. Anyway, before we transform Ratchet into bipedal Ratchet, what is going on up here? That's weird. Some kind of powder on my fingers. Anyway, before transforming Ratchet into bipedal Ratchets, if you like this video or any of the other videos that I've done on the channel and you would like to support me, I do have Patreon or Ko-fi. Links to both are going to be at the end of this video, as well as already down in the description. Otherwise, you could always do the typical YouTube support thing of like, comment, share, subscribe. Any of that stuff would be appreciated. None of it's required. But yeah, transforming Ratchet. So first thing, going to take the weapons off. They're just pegged onto the bottom here, so just pop those off. And it's a really simple system. There's just this little rectangular peg hole on either side of the guns, and these little rectangular pegs on the underside, and they just peg in there. And you want to peg them in like this, with the handle facing in, because that's the only way they're going to fit around this assembly for the wheel. You can try it this way, but they're going to get stuck. Like, they're not going to really hold that well. And unfortunately, because of the placement, if you want to have the pipes pointing in, they will peg in, but they're not going to peg in flush. They're going to be at an angle because, again, like the geometry, it butts into the this part of the inner wheel. Now, to transform this guy, the toughest part is one of the first things we do. So first thing that isn't tough is just pop this down. This just sits up like that, so pop that down. Now we want to separate this, and on Ratchet at least, it is surprisingly difficult to get this section disconnected from here. I kind of want to pull to pop this out, and like I can get the one side. This side comes out just fine, but this side really likes to stick in there. So what I end up having to do is get the one side unpopped, and then pull this flap down, which normally doesn't give me these kinds of problems, but of course it's doing it now that the camera's on. So we're just going to bring in the spudger. So, pop this out, open that up, and now that gives us a little more leverage here to pop this out. And again, this is just, I don't like doing it. This tab is nice, and like this translucent tab on both sides, it's nice and thick, so I'm not necessarily worried about it breaking, but I just don't like doing that particular bit. But anyway, open that up. Got this open. While this is open, I'm just going to flip these little translucent bits in, to make sure I don't forget to do that later. Now, I'm going to unpeg slash disconnect the these little flaps here. They peg in right in here. It's like a little tab there that pegs in there. And you kind of want to flip this back up as you rotate this down so that this piece can fit through this gap here. And that will allow you to bring this around, this flap around 180 degrees, and that will kind of peg into the side, and then this flips around like that. And same deal here. And you can see, like, when you bring this around, you really want to bring this piece up, because otherwise it's going to crash into this, and then you might snap something. So bring this up, rotate it, bring it down, and now there are these two tabs here that'll tab in here. This one tab here that'll tab in here, which isn't like super secure, but the hinge is nice and tight, so that'll be fine. And again, fold that in. There we go. That is the hardest part out of all this. Now we're going to disconnect the arms, which these are really easy to just settle in. They don't even really click in, which is nice. It's way better than this nonsense pegging in too tightly. To do that, bring down the legs, bring down the little flap in there, bring this down, disconnect this, and bring this down. And now with all of this kind of folded down, we can rotate this section around. It requires a little bit of finagling to get the wheels around it, but it's not too bad. Then this comes back up, and we'll kind of clip in here. And this can stay open, it's fine. Now we'll finish the legs. The legs are actually kind of cool. I like how the legs work. So you want to disconnect these bits. It's kind of like a T-shaped tab. So you don't want to pull, you want to just slide it out like that. And then these bits will also unplug. The legs tab together in here. And then also there's a tab up here. So untab all that. And now the feet are actually really cool. I like this. So this whole bit of the van comes down and hinges all the way down and back. This flap comes down to close that off. This flap folds in, back, folds in. And I like that actually both works as the foot and covers the painted bit here to kind of protect it from scratches and stuff as it's like on a shelf or whatever. So that's neat. And seeing it from this side, you can see there's this multi-hinge system here that allows you to swing all of this around. And that folds in, that folds in, that folds in, and that's the legs. It does kind of suck that these don't tab in, they just kind of sit, but maybe they do tab. Actually, as I'm looking at this, there are tabs there. I've never actually tried to really push them in. So let's see if that accomplishes anything. Well, what do you know? I learned something today. There are actually tabs that hold those flaps in place. All right. Hopefully not too many people will yell at me in the comments about missing that. People love to do that, especially when it's something you address in the video. They don't watch all the way to the end and see that you acknowledge it, but whatever. Anyway, last bit, want to disconnect the arms. I find it's best to just slide them apart. You can pull them, but let's slide them together and slide them apart. So slide those apart, swing these all the way around, flip out fists and bring the arms down. This piece just kind of folds up against the back. And now we can fish the head out, which isn't, like, it's not hard, it's just a little bit awkward. I kind of wish there was a slightly better way to do that, but it's fine. I also like that if you look carefully, you can see that this section here is cut exactly to accommodate the shape of the head, which is just, I don't know, I like precise tooling like that. I think that's neat. Bring the head up all the way, fold this down, push this in. You don't want to fold this in all the way, you just kind of fold it down partially, and then feed it through, and then as you feed it through, that'll push this down the rest of the way, and that will clip in to the chest, making his chest, and that's it. There is Studio Series 86 Ratchet in robot mode, and he looks really good. I mean, he's Ratchet, so his deco is a little bit on the simple side. It's primarily white with some red and a little bit of blue in the chest, but like, he looks really good. And now that I don't have to deal with these flaps moving around all the time, I actually really like how solid he comes together. Like, yeah, he's got some kibble. He's got this junk hanging around the backs of his legs and this thing on his back. But like, overall, he is really nice looking. And yes, I know, I'm sure people are going to complain about the gaps in the backs of the forearms, but like, look at how this guy transforms. What are they going to do? Like, I understand the complaints, but sometimes when people complain about hollowness, they don't stop to think about how this is all supposed to actually work. It just irritates me. Also, I am kind of wondering what's up with these bits here. Those, like, extra spots for you to store the... So they look a little bit like the tabs used for the light bar. No? No, they don't want to peg on there. Like, you can see what I mean. Like, those tabs and those tabs are very similar. I guess they must just be weapon storage. Oh yeah, they're totally weapon storage. Just tap the, No? Really? They're not weapon storage? Huh. Well, I'm sure there's some function for those that I'm not getting, but yeah, anyway. Ratchet is cool. I was kind of like, I don't know, do I really need a Ratchet? Maybe I don't, but like, I am supremely glad I got this guy because he's really neat and he transforms really cool. Like, it's just the hood section connecting to these flaps that bugs me a little bit, but like, it's fine, and the plastic feels thick enough that I'm not too worried about it crumbling. But again, he looks really good. He's very, very basic. In this mode, you don't really get any additional paint except for the fists and obviously the head. Other than that, it's just a whole bunch of white plastic, the tampos on the shoulders, and like the red for the waist section, obviously the fists. I do like that they painted the fists red, though. I mean, I'm guessing it's just a mold thing that they had to paint them. But fortunately, they did the smart thing, and they only painted the outsides. The inside peg hole is not painted, which is great, because then you don't have to worry about paint rub and that messing with tolerances and stuff like that. So, yeah, he is cool. I like him. I like, too, that he's just a little bulkier. He's got that kind of Siege and Earthrise bulk, but still looks like the 86 version of the character. Because, I don't know, like, the Masterpiece figure looked cool, but like he also looked a little bit skinny. Not saying that's wrong, just that this appeals to me more. So, yeah. Simple, cool, some nice molding all over. Not like it's... What I like about this, too, is that the molding is there, so it does add some visual interest in, like, the shins and thighs and waists and arms and all that. But because of the deco on this guy, because he's just, you know, white primarily with a little bit of red here and there, it does kind of... Like, it's not that you don't see the details, it's more that it's easy to overlook them, which helps fit in with the cartoon aesthetic. So he kind of is able to, at least for me, pull double duty, where he both looks like the cartoon guy, but also looks a little bit beyond that. And I like that very much. Now, the head, that's definitely not what I meant. Ratchet's head is Ratchet's head. It's just the white helmet with gray chevron thing, silver face, blue eyes. Sculpt is nice. The paintwork is nice. I like, too, that the crest actually, like, the gray goes all the way around. It's not just that they painted, like, the front. They got the tops, they got the bottom, they got the back. So that's really cool. The blue eyes, they maybe blend in a little bit with the white, but, like, they still stand out enough. So, not complaining there. Also, I always like it when they have this really nice shade of light blue for the eyes. I mean, the face, can't really say the face looks like Ratchet because Ratchet's face is so nondescript. I feel like it's interchangeable with like virtually any other Autobot. It's the helmet that really makes it. Or I guess the rest of the head. It's not really a helmet, but you know what I mean. So yeah, like the face looks fine. It looks like Ratchet because it's surrounded by the iconic Ratchet head. But yeah, it looks good. Now, the articulation, as we saw, is pretty expressive. The head is on a ball joint. You don't really get any side-to-side movement, but you can go all the way around. You can look up and down a fair bit, but you can also get that transformation joint involved. So he can look up that far, and then if you use the transformation joint, you can kind of nudge the head down further so he can look down a little bit more. I kind of prefer to do that too, because that also allows you to kind of shift the head forward on the torso slightly, which, I don't know, I like having that option. The arms can go all the way around, they can go out to 90, and also I love that there's this little molded bit in here that they kind of pivot off of that just adds visual detail, like some nice molded detail to make it look like some kind of bellows thing stretching out or something. Like, I don't know, I just think that's cool. You get a bicep rotation, you get 90 degrees of bend at the elbow, and you can also bend back slightly because of the transformation. The fists can angle down, which would be great if he used a sword. You give him a sword. In addition to that, they do rotate. They rotate quite a bit, and also I gotta respect the commitment to getting that much of the red painted on the fists that it even went on the inside. The waist does rotate and can go all the way around, and this is a completely separate rotation joint than the transformation joint, because you can see if we move this, here's the waist rotating, but it's this section here that rotates around for the transformation, so I think that's really cool. Which I think also kind of goes towards showing the whole like Voyager complexity and construction thing I was talking about earlier. The front skirt can move out of the way. It's unfortunately one full thing, but it can move out of the way. The hips can go forward to 90, just about. It's just this plank on the side will stop it from going any further. Go back to just about 90, can go out to pretty much 90. You get a thigh rotation. You also, should have let that up, also get 90-degree bend. And the ankles, I really like how you can do a lot with the ankles. Because of the way that they transform, you can angle them down, you can angle them forward with like this thing in the way, but like you can also just use that downward angle so you can, there you go, so you can move the ankles forward like that. And you also get tilt in about that far, but if you hinge it forward a little bit, use those extra joints, you can hinge it in even more. So yeah, he is pretty darn posable for what he is. And I guess if you wanted to, you could use the transformation joint here as like a backwards butterfly. Get him ready to just wallop someone's clothesline, because Ratchet is known to clothesline Decepticons, right? Yeah, I like him. Now the guns, they are, I believe these are kind of typical Ratchet guns. It's done in silver. I think the shape is typical Ratchet, and he holds them in his fists, as you'd expect. As for storage, you can't really get them pegged in back here once he's transformed, because this bit on the back gets in the way of that hinge. It really makes me think that this is where they're supposed to tab in, but they just don't seem to want to. And I don't know if that's something I'm doing wrong, or if it's like a molding thing. Yeah, there we go. Okay, just had to push really hard, because these are a lot tighter. And that's probably going to wear off that silver paint if I do that too much. But you can store the guns back there if you want. I prefer to have them in his hand, because, you know, he's a doctor. He needs to have guns. And thing with this guy, mine at least, this is not a huge problem, but this fist does not hold the guns well. It's a little bit on the loose side. This one you can see if I'm moving it, it like moves the whole hand before this actually spins. This one, it's a little floopy. And thing is, it's not the gun. This is something I've tested both of them, and you put the other gun in there and it's the same deal. And put this gun in here, and yeah. So it's just something about the tolerances on the inside of this fist just aren't thick enough to hold the gun very solidly. It's something I can easily fix on my own in the future, and it's not a huge problem because, I mean, it works. Like, it's not going to flop just by gravity, but it's really easy to tap out of position. So not a deal breaker, but it is a thing. And I wish it wasn't like that, but hey, could be worse. But yeah, this guy is super cool. I really like him, and I'm annoyed because now I want to reacquire a bunch more Ratchets. Now for size comparisons, bring in Dinobot, and this is more, yeah. See, this is more what I was thinking when I was talking about the sizes here. He's a little short for a Voyager. I mean, in fairness, Dinobot is actually kind of tall for a modern Voyager, but this is kind of short. Like, Ova Prime here is basically the stand-in for a tall deluxe, and he's a little bit taller than Ratchet, so yeah, that's he's a little short. Bring in Burnout for a more direct comparison with a deluxe, and like, he still is like a head taller, so there's that. But yeah, he's maybe a little short for a Voyager. But again, as I've said already, like, the amount of stuff going on in there, I feel like it's like that's really where the cost is. It's not that he's, you know, a Voyager size. I mean, he is Voyager size, but it's more that he's, you know, Voyager complexity. He's got more stuff going on, more parts. He's got those tiny little bits on the roof that fold out to complete the windows, that kind of thing. And the extra flaps in the shins to fill in things and accommodate the hinges for the feet and all that. Anyway, final and most important size comparison. Here is Studio Series 86 Ratchet with the duck tank. Now, before we wrap things up, I almost forgot. The guns have little nubs on the end, and you can plug in blast effects, and they work. As with all blast effects, you do not want to leave these on the tips of these guns because these are painted silver. You can see the handles are actual, like, it's black plastic that has been painted silver, which I guess means that this is on the same sprue as the wheels, which is interesting. Anyway, yeah, this is painted silver. And something I feel like we've all learned, but in case you're not aware over the years, is that if you leave the blast effects on painted parts for too long, the paint will come off with them when you remove them. So don't do that. It's not like, I mean, you can do what you want, honestly, but like, if you don't want the paint on the weapons to be damaged, don't leave these on for display. Like, use them for photos or whatever, videos like I'm doing, but don't leave them on for a prolonged period of time. Otherwise, the paint will come off with the blast effect. And then the blast effect will just have paint stuck to it, and the thing that it was attached to will have less paint on it, and everyone will be sad. Unless that's a look you're going for. Anyway, that has been my look at Studio Series 86 Ratchet, and as I've said many times, I actually do really like this guy. I'm shocked by how much I like him, because I was excited about Ironhide, and then when I saw the videos, I was kind of like, I don't mind missing out on him, and I think I can skip Ratchet, but maybe it's because I wasn't all that thrilled in the first place that he ended up surprising me a lot. I don't know. But he's cool. I like him. I am contemplating the Repro labels set. I'm unsure though, because they kind of make them look a little busy. Obviously I could just apply whichever ones I want, but I don't know. I'm thinking about it, but I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. Anyway, that's enough what I think. That's enough about what I think. What do you all think of Studio Series 86 Ratchet or 86 Ironhide? It's the same mold, really. Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and I'm not going to try and like guess that whether or not the next thing is going to be a new toy or not, because in the past when I've done that, like this most recent time, I was like, oh yeah, this is the last time, this is the most recent thing I've got, going back to the well, and then I picked up Ratchet like 2 days later, so I'm not going, I mean, it's silly to bother predicting that because I actually do have like more new stuff kind of off to the side here that I'm going to film later today, so that's going to be filmed. But yeah, I'm talking too much. All right, bye.